right at the forefront of a wave of frustration around either the rules or the interpretations or the implementation. I feel like holding the ball is right at the front of that at the moment. So, Robbo, you had the piece with Andrew Dillon today around whether it's congestion that is causing the problems with holding the ball.
Helping to cause the issue.
Are you a buyer there?
No. I think holding the ball is separate to congestion, in my opinion. I'm confused about what congestion actually is, because if you look statistically, the game's no more congested this year than it was last year or the year before. We had a problem with congestion maybe 20 years ago, but I don't see it. I mean, Robbo, you clearly have a different view given you've written the article. But when you're at a game live, watching the game, what do you notice in terms of congestion? Because what I'm seeing is even numbers forward of the ball, even numbers behind the ball, and less numbers around the ball than there used to be. So when you're watching it, what exactly are you saying?
I see the 70-metre bubble, which has been in the game for some time. Now, I see congestion around the ball. So if I thought that, so is Andrew Dillon wrong in saying that the number one concern in the AFL is congestion? Is he wrong in thinking that as AFL boss?
Oh no, I think it's an opinion. I mean, I just look at the numbers, and transition from defensive half to forward half is up this year on last year. Speed of ball movement from the back half to the front half is up on last year. So I think when you talk congestion, I'm interested in the numbers and the facts, because the facts I look at don't support that congestion's gone up. But if you've got an opinion that it's gone up, that's fair enough. I'd like to hear some support.
I find when watching a game of football, the mass tackling, because there's so many players around a stoppage. So if you grab it, you get tackled, which I think contributes to umpires with, is that prior opportunity? Is it not prior opportunity? Is that dropping the ball? Was it knocked out in the tackle? And then meanwhile someone else grabs it, they get tackled. And the umpires are under such pressure when I believe so many players are around the ball chasing the pill. They're under so much pressure that dropping the ball, prior opportunity, is really hard to determine when there's so much tackling going on.
Yeah, I'd be interested again on the numbers. I would, clearly I've got a narrow view on my team and probably the opposition we play in the next few weeks, but I don't observe more numbers around the ball this year than previous years.
Ken, you've coached through the different phases of this where the game really was constipated and the rule changes came in to try to set the Sharon free, as Gerard Healy likes to say. Where do you think we are in the evolution of that?
Oh, look, I think the game's in pretty good shape from what I see and hear and understand from the value of the game and what the broadcasters are willing to give up for the game. I think the game itself can't be in that bad a shape. If you want to understand congestion from a coaching point of view, I would say Brad, myself and all the other coaches in the game, we tend to get a bit of blame for this, but we spend an awful amount of time on coaching our teams and our players around shape of a contest. We don't just talk around get 25 people in there and make it a mess. We talk about all the possibilities of how do we defend that ball, how do we attack with that ball, how do we halve that ball. We don't spend as much time as you might think about putting numbers there. We want to play the game. We want to get the game moving as quick as we can too. We want the game umpired consistently, and that would be probably the biggest challenge we have with congestion. I think it comes around from the way sometimes the rules are interpreted, which is a really, really difficult job umpiring our game of football.
So when you talk about the shape around the pill, how far off, Kenny and Brad, do you form the shape? Is it you have the first layer, then the second layer, third layer of players? That's a shape, forward and defence. How close are they to the ball when you talk about shape?
Well, we talk about all 18, Robbo. We don't just talk around what everyone thinks is the contest of midfield, the 6 players against 6 players. We talk about the 18 players in our team. Around what type of shape we want on that ball, and it's a bit more detailed than people give it credit for. It's not around holding the ball in; it's around exiting the opportunity with some fluency and ability to score. So it's not in our interest to clog the game up, particularly if the game is getting out of hand. We want to get a bit more brave with the ball and take it on. So I do think, and always have thought, that we're the easy blame. The coaches are the easy blame. It's their fault We coach the game to slow it down. I'm lucky enough to know the other 17 coaches, and they've all played the game, and they all like the game played pretty freely.
But don't you coach the game when they've got the opposition? When they've got the pill, the opposition, don't you coach it to slow the game?
Yeah, that's the idea in defence, but I think what we're talking about is stoppage. And the transition numbers I referred to before are when the ball's in general play, the ball's transitioning from one end of the ground to the other faster than it ever has, and with more regularity. So it's not bouncing back and forth, and it's not living in one half of the ground, it's transitioning. So that's a bit of a proxy for congestion. That says that in general play the game's not congested, but around stoppage, that's when numbers are around. And our game against Richmond on Saturday night, the Dreamtime, there were 6 forwards ahead for both teams, the majority of the game. So it was almost like a 6-6-6 at every stoppage. So there were 6 players from each team around the ball, 6 forwards, 6 defenders. So it didn't look congested to me. That's my observation.
Specific to holding the ball, so there's sort of the broad and the narrow. The narrow is that it feels like there were 2 branches of government. One is the judiciary says stop taking players to ground in a tackle.
Yep.
And the second required a whistle so that you didn't take players. And the second hasn't arrived. Are the players in a tough spot at the moment, which is best illustrated by the next example?
Yeah, I think the players are in an incredibly difficult position at the moment because the tribunal have clearly said that if you've got an arm pinned, if you pin the ball carrier's arm, like Mac Andrew does here, if he takes him to ground and Charlie Curnow's head hits the ground, that's a dangerous tackle. So he can't take him to ground, but he's got to stop him disposing of the ball. So I'm not sure how he does that. So it's a real coaching challenge at the moment. It's very difficult, and it's also difficult for the umpires because when there's prior opportunity, it's easy. And I think this is something that's got away from us a little bit. When the ball carrier's had prior opportunity, he doesn't then get another opportunity to dispose of the ball once tackled. As soon as he's tackled, it's holding the ball. I mean, that's the way the rule is written, and at least a couple of years ago was interpreted that way. So if that's prior, that's holding the ball right there. So he doesn't get another opportunity to dispose of the ball, and so I think we can be a bit quicker on that. The difficult one is when you haven't had prior, when does the umpire blow the whistle? Well, I think it can be a bit quicker than that.
Ken, where are you on the broad of holding the ball at the moment?
Oh, look, I think the same challenges are there for the players that you've just spoken about. They're really difficult for players. I think the quicker whistle probably helps, but I get the challenges that umpires also face. They're trying to keep the ball alive and get it out so there's not another stoppage. But are we creating more congestion that we just talked around because we're blowing the whistle too slow?
What about Lee Matthews' argument that the ball player has to get time to get rid of the ball because they've worked so hard to win the ball?
Yeah.
And it's in the charter. We've got to protect the ball winner. This is where it's getting confusing.
There are some luminaries in the game who have got opposing views on this. I'm in the Lee Matthews camp that protect the ball carrier, that if you win the ball, you deserve prior opportunity. And if you haven't had prior opportunity, then it's a ball up. I think and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Ken, but what I'm saying is that if you haven't had prior opportunity and you get tackled, blow the whistle quicker and ball it up.
Yep.
But if you have had prior opportunity and you get tackled, it's holding the ball.
Free kick.
I think just simplify it that way.
Ken?
Yeah, I can't agree more. It's pretty simple, but it's a bit challenging for the umpires at the moment. There's so many things going on in the game at the moment that need some direction, and it's not getting cleared up very quickly.
Just one last question. How do we make the game easier to umpire for the umpires? How do we do that?
I've been trying for an eternity to do that. I think, and again, this is only my observation. I haven't spoken to anyone else about this, but the positioning of umpires I think is really important. I think umpires get blindsided a lot. So what the camera angle shows on TV is not necessarily the umpire's view of proceedings, but there are 4 umpires. So I'd prefer to have the umpires lateral to the contest and out of the corridor so that they've got, there's an umpire seeing both sides of the contest so that, they're not blindsided, because I think that happens a bit too.